there's no failure. There's nothing, failure is not getting up, but we get up. So there's no failure. There's always a learning, a lesson, but there's no failure. I think that helps me when I process things because I just don't I don't want to say failure is not an option because it never exists. There's always something to learn. And so I look at it as everything's happening for me, not to me. And let's get excited. And I get faced with stuff all the time that I wish didn't come into my life. But I'm always like, okay, this is happening for me. Why is it? Let's see what we can learn from this.
Hello and welcome to the Shift Your Day Job podcast. I'm Brittany Cates, your host on this incredible journey of career transformation. Get ready for inspiring stories, valuable insights, and a roadmap to shift your mindset towards a more fulfilling professional life. In each episode, we explore the remarkable journeys of individuals who made a career change, offering motivation, strategies, and the confidence to pursue your dreams. Whether you're feeling stuck, contemplating a change, or just seeking a dose of inspiration, this podcast is your weekly companion. Tune in every Thursday as we uncover the secrets to shifting your day job. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Shift Your Day Job podcast. I'm your host, Brittany Cates, and I'm so glad that you've joined me today. Today's guest is Betsy Pepine. She owns a brokerage firm in Gainesville, Florida, and has made a really big impact on not only the industry, but also the community that she lives in. I was really impressed by Betsy's entrepreneurial spirit and her innate self-trust that she has in herself to succeed no matter what she puts her mind to. Betsy also shares some really heartfelt experiences around building relationships through her company, as well as the self-discovery work that she has been doing in recent years that has led to writing her first book. I know you will learn some valuable lessons from her, so please enjoy this conversation and welcome Betsy to the podcast. Hi, Betsy. Welcome to the Shift Your Day Job podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Brittany. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for being here. It's nice to meet a fellow Floridian and talk about your career adventures and this book that's coming out. So if you don't mind starting off with just your career journey, like where did you start earlier on and how has it evolved and where are you now?
Oh, well, out of college, I had a business degree in college and I was pre-med in college. And then I switched degrees, which was a huge deal in my family because everybody in my family is pre-med. And making that decision was very difficult. Anyway, I switched to a business track, graduated, and then went into management consulting with Anderson Consulting for 2 years, and then went back to business school. And then I spent a decade in pharmaceutical marketing in Philadelphia, in that area, the Northeast, and then came back to Florida. Found myself suddenly single with a 1 and 2-year-old, and I just needed family support. And so I moved back to Gainesville, Florida, and consulted for a little bit with my contacts in the Northeast, but it became really difficult just with the children growing up, and I wanted to be more involved in their lives and schooling. So that's when I made the big career change from pharma to real estate. And then from there, I became a realtor. And then 2 years later, or 3 to 4 years later, I became a broker and then started really identifying more as an entrepreneur because I started building other ancillary businesses. And that's what I consider myself now, is a visionary entrepreneur that happens to be in the real estate space.
Okay. Amazing. And yeah, it looks like this, like being in the real estate space and kind of moving or shifting more into that entrepreneur area has led to a lot of different opportunities for you to branch out. So what was it about real estate that felt like it would be a better fit in your life at the time that you switched?
Yeah. And I was 37 when I switched 18, 19 years ago. And so I was back at home. Florida doesn't have a pharmaceutical industry. That a lot of pharma is in the Northeast. And so I really felt that really wasn't an option for me. So I had to pivot to, I felt like I had to pivot to something unless I wanted to stay consulting. And that kind of scared me financially, just with my clients so far away from where I lived, and the travel was getting hard as when the children were born, before they went into school, it was easier. But then they're going to go into school. I just felt like I wouldn't be there for them as much as I wanted to be. So I did feel like I needed to make a switch. Um, and the plan was, or the backup plan would have been to go into the large healthcare center here. We have a really large healthcare center, and I would have gone into the marketing department. That was my plan. But I really did not want to do that. I had grown up working in that hospital, volunteering at that hospital, and later working in that hospital in the high school summers. I really did not enjoy it at all. And my father's a physician, both my sisters are physicians. They married physicians, but I just in my heart knew that's not where I was meant to be. So when I was contemplating my option, when I was in business school, oddly, I think one of the classes I was able to take was to go into West Philadelphia, which is where I went to school, and gut row homes, rebuild them with donated supplies and donated labor. And then we interviewed at-risk families and sold them these homes for very nominal price because everything was donated. And so that was life changing for me. Like I really was inspired by, or maybe amazed at how a house could just totally change the trajectory of a family. And my parents had rental properties growing up, so I was familiar with that. So I had a little bit of that. By the time I had gotten divorced, we had already purchased 2 homes. So I did have a familiarity with the real estate space. I loved the flexibility of the career, the fact that I could set my own schedule, be at home with my girls, work from home, take my girls on the showroom. It was really, the lifestyle was very conducive to what I was looking for. My biggest fear was I had done a very poor job of keeping myself well connected to the community. I never thought I was going to return to my hometown or let alone sell. And so I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to support myself. And honestly, I was also afraid of little things. When I back and took the real estate class, I hadn't been in a classroom for over a decade. More than that, maybe, yeah, a decade and a half. And like I was scared I was going to pass the test. I mean, it was had all these fears. The biggest fear was actually telling my family because my family's they're all very academic. And my parents generously saved every dime to put us through school. And education was always paid for and supported. And it was, and to go to switch into a career where you just need a GED and a 1 week class with the state, that was hard for me to tell them that because I knew in their eyes that they would be disappointed. And in fact, when I did tell them, my mom said, "That's fine, Betsy. You do what you want. Just know that you're not going to be our realtor." And I was shocked. My parents are very supportive I'm one of 3 girls. They're very supportive of us. So I was like, oh my gosh, why wouldn't you support your daughter? And she said, we have a realtor. And I said, oh, you haven't bought a house in 20 years. You have a realtor. She said, the realtor's name. She sends us a box of chocolate every Christmas. Oh. And I was like, oh my gosh, so one part of me was like, a box of chocolate is in the way of them using their daughter. But it also gave me hope that if that's all it took to keep a client, I can do this. That was the start of my real estate career. And they slowly switched gears and supported me. But they grew up where their grandparents came through Ellis Island. They worked very hard for every single penny. They did not have a lot growing up. We didn't have a lot growing up. And they felt like what's best for us is to be a physician. And then the backup choices were an attorney. And if that didn't work, an engineer as a last resort. And so it was very hard for me, even though I was 37, to be able to go to them and say, I'm switching in a different direction. So that's how I switched to that. And then I was a realtor for 4 years. In Florida, you have to be a sales associate for 4 years. In Florida, you have to work under a broker for 2 years and then you can go out on your own. But in 2 years, I I did not feel comfortable. I didn't feel that just felt I wouldn't be able to protect myself legally. I didn't know enough. And so I waited 4 years and then decided to go out on my own because I just wanted more control over what I was able to do. If you're working in a large company, I was working for a franchise. If you want to do something a little different or creatively, you have to get several layers of permission. And I just didn't like that. If I have an idea, I want to turn around and implement it. So did that. And then I would say maybe 4 or 5 years later, I started recognizing that these customers, the customers that we service, they need other things. They need lenders, they need title, some of them would have made great agents. So they need a real estate school. So that's how I started building the other businesses because I'm like, I have one set of customers. Why not try to provide value added services, one stop shopping to the same base of customers?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that piece of recognizing a need that's not being filled, right? And then figuring out a way to fill it. And that's ultimately what entrepreneurship and starting your own business is about, right? Figuring out what are people doing and what's missing from that thing that they're doing regularly, and how can I show up and
Right.
supplement that for them.
Yeah. So true.
And I think it's really one question I have a little bit is, was your brokerage firm that you're with not necessarily associated with other lenders and title agencies? Because I thought that's how it works. Like you have connections
You
with
do,
certain,
you do have connections. They're not in house.
right.
It's truly
Okay.
one stop shopping. So the
So
title,
that's your
yeah,
difference.
that's yes, in house. And the value of that is that once you send your file to a closer, you just walk down the hall and ask for an update. And that's very different than having an outside title company supporting your agents. It's really nice for the buyer or the seller to be able to come in, see their agent, talk to the title company, talk to the lender to have just everything in one place.
So when it comes to, you did talk about the piece of telling your parents about this change. And you also mentioned there was some self doubt there, right? Like, can I do this
Oh,
thing?
yeah. Huge.
And yeah, how did you work through that and overcome that, especially when you maybe didn't feel supported like you would
Yeah.
have liked to?
I didn't feel supported by my parents. I felt supported. I have a twin sister. I felt very supported by her and my other family. And I did feel supported. When I decided to explore real estate, I called every realtor I knew that was in my town and asked them, what do you think? How do you think I'll do? Can you support me? Like just trying to learn from them. And I ended up joining I did join a franchise, but I went under somebody that I grew up with. So I felt protected and I felt like I had somebody was holding my hand through those first couple of years, which was really helpful for me. It would have been much more scary for me if I just joined a brokerage where I knew nobody and was just flying on my own. So that helped reduce my fear. I knew I had a plan B. I didn't like my plan B, but I knew I had one. And I had saved enough money and I also had rental properties. So I knew if I didn't, I could do it for 2 years and support myself and the girls and be okay. After 2 years, I'd have to find something else. But so that gave me some support and comfort in my decision that I had this window where I could make it work or not. And I knew at 2 years that if it wasn't working, it wasn't going to work. And now being in the professions for so long, we can tell with an agent, usually within 3 months, we know if this is going to be a win for them.
Yeah. So I like this idea of being prepared with your plan B and also having a source of income if you found yourself without a job or it not working out like you'd hoped. And it's definitely like something that I like to talk about is being as prepared as possible for taking that leap of a complete career change, right? Like I'm not telling anybody to just like on a whim, just quit your job and the good luck. There are people that do that and that's great, but I know that's not for everybody. And so I
Yeah.
love that you had some plans to help support you and mitigate some of the fears that may come with a career change like yours.
I think the other thing that helped me was I grew up in a house where we were taught and modeled to live well below the mean. And I think that served me well because I knew I would be totally fine. I don't require a lot to be, I don't need a lot of frivolous things. I can live on bare bones and be very happy. And so that comforted me because it wouldn't have taken much. I just knew that I would be okay and not feel deprived, even if not a lot of money was coming in.
Yeah. And that's something I've talked to about some like financial advisors on the podcast as well. So you may have a certain standard of living right now
Mm.
with whatever income you're making, but if you're not happy where you are,
Yeah.
then it really is just getting a lesser paycheck and sacrificing some of those things outweigh the discontent that you're feeling in your life in general, right? You have to decide for yourself what works.
Yeah. And it's funny because in real estate, I didn't know this about the career. One, you see all spectrums of humanity and you see the whole lifespan. You really do. I want to go back and get a psychology degree because I do feel like sometimes I'm more of a therapist than I am a broker of real estate. And now after 18 years, I can confidently say the happiness of the people is inversely proportional to the size of the house.
Mm, interesting.
Myself included. I remember years ago, I moved from a 2,000 square foot house to a almost 5,000 square foot house. My girls and I moved into it and we did run the business. I ran the business out of the house. So I needed some of that space, but I didn't need all of that space. Never been as unhappy as I was in that house. And now I'm living in a 1,600 square foot house. And and it was funny because the first time we moved in, the girls, the first, and I was a little worried because we're reducing more than half. And I wasn't sure how they would take it. One was going off to college and one was in high school. And the first day they said, Mom, this feels so much more like home.
Yeah. That intimacy, that like closeness of the
Yeah.
space,
Yeah. You
probably.
don't have to text someone to see if they're home. And
Yeah.
and it's hard. It is hard to have like 20-foot high ceilings and make that feel cozy. It just is. And I was so blessed the gentleman that I sold, my grandma passed away when I moved back to Florida and we sold her house. And her house was next door to the house I grew up in. And when I was deciding to move into a different home, he called me and asked me to come sell the house. And I was like, oh no, I'm not selling it. So I'm coming over to buy it. And I whipped up a sales contract and took it over and I bought her house back. So,
Wow. That's so cool.
yeah.
It's not the house you live in though, right? Is it a rental or do you live in it?
I live in this a 1,600 square foot, my grandma's house.
That's amazing.
And I loved it. It feels like a warm hug every time I drive in the driveway. Like it's just, and I will never, this house is staying in the family. My girls have already said that, but we're never going to get rid of this house.
Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful. Can you discuss a tough moment in your transition, your career transition, and how you stayed resilient during that time?
My timing, looking back, people thought I was crazy because I got into real estate in 2006 and the market started to recede and we started going to recession a year later. And then we had the incredible terrible housing market for the next 3 years. Then at that time, I decided to go out on my own and make my brokerage and people thought I was crazy again. But it was interesting because it never crossed my mind to be scared about that because I didn't get into real estate because the market was good or bad. I got into real estate because I thought I had an interest in real estate and the lifestyle that the profession bring me. That doesn't change if the market goes down. So I really wasn't, I never really paid attention to what the larger market was doing and made that a factor in my decision making on how I wanted to transition through my career. Going out on my own was scary when you don't have the support of a brokerage and you feel like you're solo and you do question how much does somebody use your services because of the brand behind you. And then how much do people use you because they like you and trust you? And that I hadn't tested that obviously because I was always under this franchise. And so that was the scary part was Are they embracing me or are they embracing the franchise? And that took a little bit of a leap of faith. And but I was very blessed that the community really supported me.
Yeah. I think it's interesting to consider like we can look at the economy and use that as a driving force to determine what career path we're going to take. But we don't have to. Like, we can bet on ourselves
Right.
and have the confidence and the trust in ourselves that we've got this no matter what the market's doing.
Right.
And how did you, how have you come to that place where you do trust yourself enough to make these kinds of decisions?
That's an interesting question. I don't know. I do think a lot of it has to do with the way I was raised. My parents raised us to be, I don't know how they did it, but very not, hopefully not arrogant, but very self-confident in our abilities. I mean, we were taught to work really hard and that anything was possible. And I think the other thing that was really helpful for me and the lessons I learned in my childhood is that there's no failure. Failure is not getting up, but we get up. So there's no failure. There's always a learning, a lesson, but there's no failure. That helps me when I process things because I just don't feel like I don't want to say failure is not an option because it never exists. There's always something to learn. And so I look at it as everything's happening for me, not to me. And let's get excited. And I get faced with stuff all the time that I wish didn't come into my life. But I'm always like, okay, this is happening for me. Why is it? Let's see what we can learn from this.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's a great mindset to cultivate and practice, and that you grew up with that because a lot of people are afraid of failure, right? For whatever reason, and reframing it into it's not failure doesn't actually exist. It's like this construct, right? Because as human beings,
Yeah.
we're here to learn, and the
Right.
only way we're going to learn and grow is by trying things out. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, what did we learn and how do we pivot? How do we change?
And I really am trying to be cognizant. I don't like making decisions based on fear.
Mm.
It does not work for me. And so if I catch myself doing that, I stop and I'm like, no, what decision would I be making if I made it out of love of myself, love of others, and not out of fear? I think that's for me, a really healthy way when I'm looking at options and understanding my motivation behind the options that I'm seeking, making sure basing that decision on love.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's a good reminder for people as well.
Mm.
How do you want to live? What do you value? And how do you want to show up every day? And
Mhm.
so is it through the lens of fear or the lens of love? And love is the most powerful thing in the world that we can harness and we can choose to see through that lens
Mhm.
as much as we desire. It's just again a matter of shifting your perspective.
Mhm.
Can you tell me a little bit? You mentioned the relationships that you had in the community when you were going out on your own, as well as when you were even first starting in the real estate business. I love that you talked about that networking piece and how you reached out to people that you knew and trusted and were able to get more advice about the new industry that you're trying to enter, which is definitely something that I encourage my listeners to do as well. But when it comes to the part where you went out on your own and those relationships you had cultivated, how do you instill trust and build those relationships that in order for that those clients to stick around? Did you send boxes of chocolate every Christmas or like how do you end up
I'm
navigating that and
just
building those
kidding.
relationships?
When I was in Earls, I'm not in it right now. Like I manage it, but I'm not personally buying and selling things. I'm helping people buy and sell things, but I did do, I feel, a strong job before I went out on my own. So once I look at it as, and I tell my agents this all the time, we don't sell houses. We don't. Houses sell themselves. And I will be the first person to talk you out of buying a house. If I personally don't think you're in the right financial position, emotional position. Like we get a lot of people going through divorces or deaths or something pretty significant, and they want to race to a new thing, but they don't even know if they're going to be here in a year. So I'm the first to say, time out, let's take a break. And so I definitely look at it as a relationship business and a relationship, not a transactional business, but a relational one. So I think that helps because when I look at it through that lens, they see that I'm not, I could care less about the money. I really don't care. You see some people in our profession, and I don't like seeing it when people call it commission growth, but they just want to sell somebody something. And I don't look at it like that. The value of customer to me is not the house they sell, the house they sell or buy through us. It's earning their trust so that they feel compelled to share our name with everyone they know that at that point in time that they need a real estate agent. That's the value in it. We're not looking, a single sale isn't going to make my business. But if they feel that so strongly about me or my agents that they want to share us with their sphere, that's where the value is. And so you really have to take that long-term approach and just don't worry about individual sales. Worry about establishing solid relationships. Some of my closest friends were my clients first. I remember one woman, she moved into her house. She came from Ohio, and her family spent their first Thanksgiving at my family table. I've had clients spend the night at my house when their house isn't ready. So it's just when you look at it in that way versus a transactional way, I think it helps. So then when I went on my own, I felt like I did have individual relationships. So I think that gave me confidence and hoped that they didn't feel like they needed a brand behind them to sell their house, that I could do it on real. So I think that helped. I think, and then we did, and I still do more structured, planned things to show them that they are of value to us. They mean something to us. We remember them. We have a whole client care program. I tell my agents the relationship really starts at the day of closing. And a lot of agents look at that as the end. We look at it as this is the beginning of a wonderful relationship that we're going to have for years. So we have a whole program built out on how we can add value to them in their lives and their families' lives. And we call them touches, but all these touches that we give them throughout the year. And we invite them to events as well. So we're face to face with them so that they do become a part of our kind of ecosystem, community, family.
Yeah. I love that, especially being familiar with the mortgage space. We have discussions about how a lot of times you close on a home and you're a brand new homeowner and you don't know what you don't know. And how are we facilitating or helping with our product the
Right.
next steps,
Mhm.
right? All those next steps that come after the
Right.
closing. And so I love that you frame it like that. It's no, this is the beginning because this is the beginning of their new life in this new home and having new experiences here. And how do
Right.
we help them? So that's amazing.
And you could partner. We've got some great lenders in town that do the same thing that we're doing, like it on in their own way. But you can also, and I've seen where lenders partner with agents and have the messaging come from both of them because they were a team when they closed and they continue to be a team throughout the duration of the length of stay in the home.
You talked a little bit about your support system, like with your sister, but maybe we could talk a little bit more about like how your business has evolved over time to where it is now
Mhm.
and the support system or guidance that you've had through the changes.
So the biggest support system probably for me, I don't remember who, but somebody very early in my career said, never do training. You have to do a lot of training and CE and stuff like that. Never do it in your hometown. So I would always do my training in other cities, sometimes in other states, to meet as many different agents as I could. And I would always take their name. And now I have this wide network of agents across the country that if I have any question and don't know the answer to it or want a different opinion or see what they're doing, I can call them and we share ideas. So that's been wonderful. Then I got myself a coach, that was life changing in terms because he was also, I felt like a coach, not for real estate, but also helped me as a coach for life. So I had him for probably 10 years. So that was great. So that was support. And then I moved out of the real estate coaching since I actually became a real estate coach, but I moved out of that for myself and moved into more coaching for entrepreneurs because I really wanted to shift my mindset. It's a little bit different mindset than a broker of real estate. And so until this day now, I have coaching that's more on a national level. Every quarter I fly into Chicago and get coached for entrepreneurship. So that's been a big support system. The other thing I do, and we do this also as a group in our brokerage, is I'm a big believer of mentors. So that's different than a coach. And I like to have mentors in every facet of my life. So I don't feel that a mentor for my spirituality can also be my mentor for business or my mentor for my health or my mentor for my finances. So we encourage our agents to get mentors in each of their life pillars so that and set goals in each of your life pillars. And that way you can move forward in the direction that you like. And at the same time, I do believe we have a duty to look behind us and pull somebody, be a mentor for somebody else that's 5 steps behind us. So that's been also a wonderful sense of support for me, the mentors.
I just love how you incorporate real life relationship building mentality, the psychology piece into everything that you do and the life pillars, thinking of them that way. And how do I have the support that I need in order to thrive in all areas of my life and not just like one?
Yeah. Yeah. We're big believers of that. Your career is just one small slice of your pie. And we don't want anyone, one of our core values is balance. And we really want to make sure that our agents live balanced and fulfilling lives.
Speaking of the national conferences that you go to, I know that you also have a nonprofit.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about how that came about for you?
Sure. So it was interesting. One of my early lessons was when I had first gone out on my own, I had hired an assistant and we were really busy. I had maybe three agents at the time and hadn't taken a vacation in a long time with my girls. And so we decided to go on a cruise. And 2 days before the cruise, my assistant came to meet with me and told me she was leaving. And I was shocked. I was so doing managing people. I didn't know what I was doing, to be honest with you. But I did know enough to ask her why. I know your decision's made, but I've got to learn from this. Tell me why. She said, we don't feel like a family, which I was like, wow. So this is part of the idea of my book. She said, I have no opportunity for growth here, which was very true. She was my assistant and I had no growth plan for anybody at the time. And she said, and we don't give back to the community. And that one floored me because I've always given back to the community. But that comment and the family comment, I had the model in my head that a business is where you go to work and you get your paycheck. Yeah, that was in pharma. That's what it was. I wasn't modeled anything other than that. And in the hospital that I worked in before and where my father worked in, that wasn't modeled at all. Yet this woman was telling me she wanted something different. I envisioned you work and you go home to your family, but she was saying, no, I want work to be a part of my family. And I volunteer a lot, but she wanted work to incorporate volunteering and giving back. So we started then organizing monthly, maybe not so much monthly at that time, but it became monthly volunteer events in the community. Because that would be something I would have done on my own time. But now I just do it with everybody and it's fun. All the agents can sign up if they want. If they don't want to, that's fine. We ask agents for their input because we want to make sure that we're representing all of our agents' preferences in terms of giving back. And so we started doing that. And then I think we started Pepine Gives, which is our nonprofit in 2018, because I really wanted to focus our giving back in a more impactful way. And so we created Pepine Gives, and it provides housing for at-risk families locally. And the idea came from my experience when I was in business school, seeing what happens with when you can get a cost burden family into a home. And so we've been doing that now, and that's been phenomenal. And it ties directly into what we do on our for-profit side. So I just love the meshing of the two. And so that's how that came to be.
Yeah. I love that. And I can see that there's this theme of service and wanting to help and lift others, which I think is a common theme that I hear from most of my guests. Like, as human beings, we want meaning and purpose in our life, and serving others is often how we find that. And so I just love hearing all of your examples of how you have incorporated that into your all facets of your life. So it's awesome. Can you tell us a little bit more about the book and what got you to write it and what's it about and who is it for?
So the book came to be when I was in I'm 55. When I was in my mid to late 40s, 47 ish, I was feeling unhappy and I was frustrated. It actually took me a year or two to even be able to admit that to myself and to others because I had a lot of guilt around that because on paper, it looked like I had everything. I didn't feel like I had the right to be unhappy given everything we see in the world. And so that was a process, just being able to accept the fact that I wasn't happy. And I was scrolling through, I don't know, I don't know what site, something on the internet in that time. And I saw a picture of this girl. It's hard to see, but there's a picture of a girl who she looks to be about 4 or 5 years old. She's got her arms and legs spread out as wide as she can go. She's in a one-piece bathing suit on lush green grass, looking up, rain pouring down on her, and she's got this smile of just pure unbridled joy. And I felt so drawn to her. I printed the picture out. I sent it to a marine company that put it on canvas for me. It hangs in my office. It hangs at my home office. It's the screensaver on my phone. It's the screensaver on my computer. I put it everywhere. I'm like, that, I don't know. It just spoke to me. And then about a year later in Florida, we get hurricanes. And a hurricane was coming through, and I was trying to have a project when hurricanes come through because invariably the lights go out and you get bored. That hurricane, I decided to take all my photos out of photo boxes and put them into photo albums. So I'm doing the electricity goes out about 2 hours into the storm. I light some candles. I start doing this project. Get to the end of the boxes, and I go to the trash can to throw the photo boxes away. And I noticed that at the bottom of the last box, there's this photograph face down that I had missed. So I pull the photograph out, can't see what it is. Pull it over to the candle, and I look at it, and oh my gosh, it was like a bolt of lightning went through me, not from the hurricane outside, but from what I was looking at. I run to my home office with the candle and the photo, and I put it up to this picture of this girl that I've been looking at for the past year on my wall. And I should mention this picture that I had put on my wall. In the middle of the picture, it says, "Remember her. She's still there inside you, waiting. Let's go get her." So I look at the picture. I look at this girl. I look back at the picture. Picture I'm holding is a picture of a girl in her favorite one-piece striped bathing suit in the ocean, St. Augustine Beach, St. Augustine. She's standing 3 feet in front of her father. Father's taking her picture. She's plunging towards a wave and as if she's going to try to hug it. And she has a smile of pure unbridled joy. And on the bottom of that photo, it said, "Betsy, age 4, in my mother's handwriting." And I was like, that's what's missing. Like somehow I've lost myself along the way. And the last 6 or 7 years had been a journey on returning to that. And through the course of going through journaling, therapy, yoga, meditation, bioenergetics, I was open to everything and still am. The theme and source of my unhappiness was in large part due to this feeling of being contained and in these metaphorical boxes, these boxes that these of expectations and opinions of family of origin, of our religion, of our friends and family, of our industry, of our gender. And it was the feeling of feeling confined that got me to that space. And so I've been on this journey of breaking these boxes that I found myself in. And so the book it's a thematic memoir of my journey. It starts from when I was a little girl to present day and all the boxes I found myself in that I didn't know I was in. Some served me for a while, but I overstayed my welcome. Some never served me, and it took me a long time to see it. And it's not that all boxes are bad. I'm in the twin box. I have an identical twin. I would never trade that box in the world, or the mom box. But there's elements of those boxes that don't serve me. And then there's some boxes that just don't serve me at all. And so I wrote the book because I thought, gosh, if I'm experiencing this, I'm sure others have felt this, and maybe they don't know, and maybe they know, but they don't know what to do. So that's why I wrote the book. My goal of the book was to help one person. I thought, if one person reads this book and it changes the way they view something in their life and they make a change for the better, then it would have been worth it. So that's why I wrote the book. And we'll see if my goal is met. It launches September 23rd.
So that's beautiful. I love it. I feel like I can resonate, and I'm sure most of my listeners can as well. My latest podcast interview, she mentioned that as adults, we're just trying to get back to when we were children, like that feeling of when we were children, of this freedom and authenticity and not caring what other people think and just being ourselves and embodying love, like we talked about. And so I just love that example of recognizing it and the realization that you had. That's what's missing, right? That's what I'm trying to get back to.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Betsy, thank you so much for being a guest on the show today. I've enjoyed this conversation, and I am looking forward to your book. Could you tell people where they can find it? Or I guess it's on pre-order right now.
It's on pre-order. I think, yes, it's going to be available in hard and soft, back cover, Kindle, and audiobook. And it'll be available on Amazon, all the big box stores, all the major bookstores. And you can pre-order, I think, just the Kindle on Amazon right now. You can also go to my website, betsypepine.com, and you can sign up for my newsletter. And there might also be a link there for this book.
Amazing. Thank you again. It was a pleasure.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thank you so much for tuning in today, and a huge thank you to our guest for sharing such valuable insights. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave a review. Your feedback helps others discover the podcast, and it means the world to me as I continue to bring you content that supports your career change journey. If today's conversation resonated with you and you're feeling stuck in a career that doesn't fulfill you anymore, I'm here to help. My one-on-one career coaching program is designed specifically for women who are ready to break free from the grind and discover a career that truly excites them. In our sessions, we'll uncover what's holding you back, identify your true passions, and create a clear, actionable plan to transition you into a career that aligns with your deepest values. You can get in touch with me directly at shiftyourdayjob@gmail.com, or you can connect with me on social media at shiftyourdayjob. I'd love to hear from you and support you on this journey. Until next time, I'm your host, Brittany Cates, and together, let's shift your day job.